Okay, guys.
One of the strangest and scariest discoveries found frozen in ice holds an innocent title, the Maiden. You may be thinking, well, that's not so scary, but think again. This Incan mummy is the thing nightmares are made of. The well-preserved mummy was found alongside two young child mummies, 22,000 feet above sea level, on the slopes of a volcano. Although it was 1999, nearly 500 years after she died, the maiden still had lice in her hair. All three were preserved in the icy mountain, completely ready to rise from the dead. Johann Reinhard, an American archaeologist and member of the expedition that discovered the three mummies, said, "The doctors have been shaking their heads and saying they sure don't look 500 years old, but as if they died a few weeks ago, and a chill went down my spine the first time I saw her hands because they look like those of a person who is alive." The history of this poor maiden is devastating enough to make you sympathetic to her plight. Even if she's a bit of a Frankenstein monster, she was likely suffering from tuberculosis or a similar bacterial infection when her people decided it was best to sacrifice her to the Yoyayeco volcano in Argentina. How do archaeologists know this? They swabbed the ancient patient's lips and compared it to living pathogens. One of the archaeologists, Korthals, said of the method, "Our technique opens a new door to solving some of history's biggest mysteries. It will also enhance our understanding of our future greatest threats, such as the emergence of new infectious agents or re-emergence of known infectious diseases." Amongst the bodies was a grand collection of silver and gold, textiles, statues, pots with food in them, and a feathered headdress, suggesting that the trio were sacrificed, not to appease the gods, but to enter the realm of the gods and live in paradise alongside them, despite being killed before their time. The three sacrificed mummies are now presumably enjoying an afterlife that's markedly better than the disease-infested life they experienced on Earth. Here's hoping anyway. Number 14, Everest Markers. Imagine climbing up the highest mountain in the world and being visually reminded every so often that you might die doing it, reminded by the dead bodies that came before you and did in fact fail at reaching the summit, or at least making it out alive. This is the real deal. Each year, everyone from the most seasoned of mountaineers to those who are taking their first go at the mountain pays thousands of dollars to climb Everest, only to be reminded constantly of their imminent death. And often people do die in the attempt. 240 climbers have perished, and many of their bodies color the mountain, their bright winter gear frozen in the ice.
Really sad, guys.
The most vividly scary and deadly section is called Rainbow Valley for this very reason. The colorful gear from the dozens of dead bodies of previous climbers. These markers on Everest remind climbers that although the climb doesn't seem terrible, the altitude and potential for storm can be fatal, as it has turned for whole groups in past years. The lack of oxygen and exhaustion that high up can take your life. This place is called a death zone for a reason. Why aren't the bodies removed from the mountains? Because getting up and down the mountain carrying only yourself is strenuous enough. Climbing up and down Everest while carrying another human being will likely leave you yet another victim. And so the dead remain. Number 13, a frozen mammoth.
It would most definitely
the
be a
Russian woolly mammoth calf, Luba, is a real charmer, so perhaps you won't find this 41,800-year-old mammoth particularly scary, but imagine if you met her in real life. The discovery of Luba in May 2007 was completely accidental. The woolly mammoth was found not by scientists, but by a reindeer hunter and breeder named Yuri Kudi, along with his sons. They were out on the Arctic Yamalo Peninsula in Russia when they came across the enormous mammoth carcass near Uribe River. Kudi knew it was a significant discovery, so he traveled 150 miles to seek advice from a friend who, in turn, told him to contact the local museum director. Kudi then tracked the authorities back to the Uribe River.
I think they said this guy's name was Kudi,
only to find the carcass had vanished. It turns out that Kudi's cousin decided to profit off the find by selling it to a store owner who lived in Novi Port, a settlement close by. In return, the cousin received 2 snowmobiles. Quite a terrible exchange for the priceless mammoth remains. What's worse is that dogs had chewed parts of Luba's body in the moving process, damaging it. But
hey guys, in case you didn't hear, this is a reaction video on the top 10.
Once examined, the calf was found to have been preserved incredibly well, with its trunk, eyes, organs, skin, and even some of its fur intact. Milk from the calf's mother was even found in Luba's stomach. The discovery, quite simply, was incredible. The police in Kuti returned the remains to the Szymanowski Museum by helicopter, where it was named Luba in honor of Kuti's wife. Don't know about you, but I wouldn't want anything with the words woolly or mammoth in its title named after me or my loved one, but hey, to each its own. Number 12, frozen century-old photographs. A fatal expedition, deaths and sinking ships, fear and adrenaline. Some in the Ross Sea Party didn't survive the Arctic expedition, but the 100-year-old photographs of the crew did. Conservationists were renovating Arctic exploration huts in 2013 when they discovered a box of negatives cemented in an ice block. Once developed, the century-old film depicted photos of an ill-fated crew, the Ross Sea Party, which had set out to cross Antarctica from 1915 to 1917, led by famous explorer Ernest Shackleton. The crew was split in two, with one set of explorers, the Ross Sea Party, creating a supply route on the continent's Aussie side, while the other half entered on the opposite side, from South Georgia. This team led by Shackleton. Theoretically, they would meet in the middle. Theoretically. Shackleton's ship, Endurance, did not endure. It slowed with the ice pack before it even made it to Antarctica, staying in the same place for around 9 months. The pressure began growing around the ship, so much that they had to abandon it. They began to cross the frozen ice sheet on foot, watching their ship sink after only 3 more days afloat. The Shackleton crew set up Patience Camp in January of 1916 and sat patiently through a blizzard that kept them there so long that all of the crew's 69 dogs were killed in order that the men didn't starve to death. They abandoned their efforts in April, managing to wait out the weather before plopping into 3 lifeboats that took the crew to Elephant Island and then back to South Georgia, where Shackleton called off the expedition. The Ross Sea Party faced the same challenges on the other side, but they did manage to complete their mission, creating the supply routes for Shackleton's crew, not without a few fatalities and another sinking ship. The photographs came from their party and, sadly, the ill-fated crew is memorialized in blocks of ice, where some of their men's lives also remain. Number 11, a frozen volcano. You've seen the ground freeze, you've likely skated upon it. You may even have gone ice fishing, planting yourself on a frozen lake over a hole, but you probably don't realize that when this ground freezes and thaws, the land beneath it changes shape, like some creepy shapeshifter. Land that regularly freezes and thaws can create some whopping land formations, like the pingus found on China's Tibetan Plateau. The fairly flat and barren land is sometimes oddly interrupted by these 160-foot tall volcano-like hills. These pingus form when the frozen ice underground is pressurized. Gradually, ice layers are fed by the pressurized water from below, producing these pingus that just may explode like gushing ice volcanoes. While they may not be as scary or dangerous.
That was kind of neat. That was kind of neat, guys.
As lava spewers, if in the wrong place at the wrong time, pingus can certainly shoot your eye out. Number 10, a frozen plant. Well, no Venus flytraps or other crazy scary plants have been discovered in the permafrost. Russian scientists have uncovered plants that date back 30,000 years in the frozen tundra of Siberia.
It's kind of neat, guys. Kind of a cool looking flower.
In 2012, the thin-leaved ancestor of the Campion were found in a ground squirrel's winter storage. Little did he know, he would be in for a long winter. As the Ice Age overcame him and the entire Earth, the scientists regenerated the fertile plants from in vitro fruit tissue culture, Pleistocene.
That looks kind of cool, guys.
That dated back to the late Pleistocene age. The fruits were so intact because they had been fossilized beneath the permafrost sediments, which had never thawed, serving as a cold freezer with temperature levels of -7 degrees Celsius. This discovery, and all of these discoveries found in the permafrost, will serve as a sort of frozen petri dish to study the rates of microevolution and discover various prehistoric plant tissue. Number 9, a frozen crater. If you thought craters were only for the moon, you thought wrong. Below the permafrost of Siberia, yet again, lies an enormous crater of the Yamal Peninsula, aka the end of the world. If you saw the size of this crater...
That's a big hole, guys. Really big.
You might start to think it was the end of the world too. Oil and gas workers first spotted the giant crater when flying over the area. Russian scientists were sent to
Guys, it looks like Siberia's got a glory hole.
uncover the finding, and they discovered a bottomless pit of scary under the ice. The crater is around 200 feet wide and who knows how deep. Since its finding, many different theories have been bandied about as to how and why this giant crater came into existence. Some believe it was an explosion, others think it was the work of a meteorite, and still others blame missiles that have gone astray. But Russian scientists have found an extremely high level of methane in the area, up to 9.6% to be exact, while normal concentrations in the air usually only contain 0.000179% methane, according to Andrei Plekhanov, an archaeologist at Salehard's Scientific Center of Arctic Studies. The rising temperatures may have melted some of the permafrost, releasing the severely high amount of methane, which resulted in the massive crater, or perhaps it's just a pit of despair. Number 8. A frozen headless corpse. Not only does the Siberian tundra serve as an indeterminate source
Hey there, you're listening to State of Survival Radio. Calling all survivors who can hear this, please come to our shelter right away.
of long extinct animals, prehistoric plants, and giant craters. It was also once a storage unit for bodies ravaged by vicious viruses like smallpox. The eradicated disease could find its way back into the mainstream as the permafrost starts to thaw and these once buried bodies are freed. This is what happened 20 years ago when a body was found in the Kolyma River and then transported to the Northeast Research Station in Chursky, Siberia. Whether or not this headless corpse was smallpox-ridden, no one would know, and so everyone steered clear of it. The frozen soil could have kept the virus alive and thriving. Many people are frightened at the thought of a smallpox resurgence, particularly local residents, when bodies are recovered or mass graves are exposed in Siberia, and the scientists were frightened too, so frightened that they didn't even care to conduct any research on these aged human remains. The corpse was reburied, despite the fact that one of the researchers estimated the corpse's traditional reindeer skin garb was roughly 300 years old, long before smallpox became such an epidemic. The fear of the potential virus destroyed the possibility of discovering this headless corpse's history. Sad, but perfectly understandable. Number 7. Frozen puppies. If the sad emoticon was invented for a reason, this is it. There's nothing sadder than frozen puppies. In fact, this entry is not so scary, unless you imagine these frozen corpses returning as zombie puppies. Now that would be freaking creepy. Again, found in the Siberian permafrost, a 10,000-year-old family of puppies was discovered, buried in what researchers presume was a landslide. The puppy corpses were uncovered in incredible condition and are hypothesized to have been one of the first domesticated breeds, a dog that is now found in North America, having crossed the Arctic land bridge alongside human nomads. Although the puppies are ancient, you probably still imagine them with this cute little puppy face, but remember, they could also mobilize into zombie puppies that will eat your brain, so run for your life. Number 6. Alien eggs. Imagine you're walking across a frozen lake when, all of a sudden, you spot this strange amassing of concentric circles on the face of the ice. What would you think of the strange formation? Is it natural or alien? Two friends faced the same questions when they were met with a curious mass on a lake in Utah. The mass was spherically engraved into the frozen ice and tiny holes permeated out from its center. Their conclusion was that
I think it might be natural, guys.
The unidentifiable mass could be some sort of extraterrestrial leftovers from their visits on our planet, perhaps alien eggs. The two filmed the mass and even touched it with their bare hands, describing its texture as slimy. They did not collect any samples, leaving scientific explanations all up to theory. But of the 10,000 plus YouTubers who viewed the video, you'll find plenty of oddball theories. A coffee splash, salt cubes that have been laid out to form a fishing hole, and those with no imagination at all claim it's just natural frozen ice, with some areas freezing softer than others. What do you think this strange spherical entity could be?
I don't know.
Number 5. A frozen rhino.
I don't know what that
Everyone's heard of woolly
could be,
mammoths,
guys.
but have you heard of woolly rhinos? The scary cute little baby rhino Sasha was discovered in, you guessed it, Siberia, as its ice casket melted for the big reveal.
That's really neat, guys. A woolly rhino.
Like Luba, this particular woolly rhino was found by hunters in 2014. They were heading down a stream when they spotted what they thought was a dead reindeer carcass floating just beyond the permafrost.
Remember, Lupa is the woolly mammoth, guys, that it showed earlier.
Upon closer examination, however, they discovered the age-old rhino and removed it from the soil, storing it away during the cold season before delivering it to the Saha Republic Academy of Sciences. Being just an 18-month-old baby calf, Sasha may not have been all that scary, but she is scary unique. She's the only woolly rhino calf to have ever been found, and one of only a handful of woolly rhinos to be discovered. She wasn't fully intact, however, having had her backside torn apart by a predator. But a leg, the torso, the head, and her horns and woolly skin have been preserved. Researchers who examine these extinct creatures' carcasses will be able to better hypothesize how they grew, lived, and adapted.
Guys, this thing was probably ripped apart by a saber-toothed cat.
As the Earth drove them to extinction. Number 4, a frozen skeleton pit. Near the Himalayas lies a glacial lake called Rupkund. It's innocent enough in the coldest months when it's frozen, but when the ice thaws, a stunningly creepy pile of bones is revealed. Human bones. The eerie remains were uncovered in 1942 by a forest guard who came across Skeleton Lake as it's been rightly named, and the hundreds of bones that float within it.
Very sus.
The bones were originally thought to be World War II remains of Japanese soldiers. Nope. They were later thought to be the remains of Kashmir General Singh and his men, who were believed to have gotten lost in the upper Himalayas when returning from 1841's Battle of Tibet. Still, nope. They were much older than a century or two. National Geographic scientists detected that the skeletons dated back to 850 AD, and that many of the skulls indicate they were struck by tiny pinpricks falling straight down upon them. Probably hail. In fact, as the local folklore tells it, Kanaja's king, Justalo, and his men were celebrating in the high mountain when Latu, a deity, massacred the lot of them for disturbing his sleep. Talk about raining on the Kanaja's parade. Now all that remains, frozen in ice, is a pit of death to remind us all to respect the heavens. Number 3, a frozen warning of warming. American geologist Paul T. Walker may have known exactly what was to come when he wrote a note, slipped it in a bottle, and buried it beneath some rocks near the edge of a Canadian glacier on Ward Hunt Island in 1959, not knowing whether his message would be discovered. His note instructed the finder to measure the distance from the bottle to the edge of the glacier. In 2013, 2 Laval University scientists from one of the island's research stations did, in fact, uncover the bottle frozen in ice more than 50 years after his death, which was only a month following the written message when he died of paralysis from a brain seizure. They followed his instructions. The scary and shocking measurements revealed that the ice shelf had retracted 233 feet from Walker's measurement in 1959, which was 168 feet, to the newfound measurement at 401 feet. This vast difference indicates that global warming is real, and that is scary no matter which way you look at it. Number 2, a frozen virus. Unless you're a climate change denier, you'd probably agree it's common knowledge that the Earth is getting warmer and the ice caps are melting. If you also agree that this warming is man-made, then we'd better unmake it, because we're opening up a whole new can of worms when it comes to unearthing prehistoric viruses in the Earth's frozen ice. Recently, 100 feet beneath the frozen soil of the Siberian tundra, a giant scary virus was discovered, still active, still infectious, still going strong, despite being an estimated 30,000 plus years old, according to the researchers who discovered.
Paying your bills on time raises your credit score, right? Wrong. In fact, this is one of the 3 major credit score lies you're being told by the big credit.
The virus, it was fat and elongated, which is why it was named the pathos virus. Pathos
really
being derived
strange,
from the
guys.
Greek word for a large
Most
storage
definitely
barrel.
strange.
The virus is said to be the largest on
Very
Earth,
sus.
but don't wet your scaredy pants quite yet. Although enormous and infectious, the human species is immune to the danger the virus poses, as it only affects amoebas, single-celled organisms.
That's
Thank God
disgusting.
most of us are many-celled, but the discovery still poses a problem. When the permafrost is distributed, either by scientists scientists,
Ew.
nature, or man-made global
Ew.
warming, supersized viruses that lurk below may also be disturbed, and next time, who knows if the virus will be harmless to
That looks like
man,
vomit.
like this mega Siberian one. The permafrost may serve as a waiting room for prehistoric infectious viruses that have the potential to destroy the human species. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT. I also have a Twitter at YTChills where I post video updates.
Guys, that'll be a wrap on that video. Just subscribe to Lots and Pockets of Taco King's YouTube channel.